Russian history is full of unfathomable riddles and mysteries, and many of them will forever remain unsolved, but perhaps nothing is more intriguing than people whose fate is surrounded by secrets and mysteries that have left an indelible mark on Russian history. Before I start the video, I want to recommend you another one of my channel's Visioner, which has about 120 interesting videos on the topics of different world disasters, radiation, and other interesting facts. I put the link to the channel in the description and in the top right corner. Thank you. I will continue. Yakov Blumkin has been called Soviet Agent 007, which is not surprising. At the age of 29, Blumkin became a legend of Soviet intelligence. During his lifetime, he was dedicated poems by Yesenin and Gumilev, and the special operations he designed and carried out around the world influenced the fates of entire countries and nations. But first things first, Yakov Blumkin's childhood and youth are covered by a veil of mystery. Blumkin's biography is known only in his own words, and the information diverges so much that even the year of his birth is still unknown exactly. According to official data, Blumkin was born in 1900 in the Odessa proletarian family. Blumkin first made himself known about 1917, when on the wave of upheaval in the country, he joined the Socialist Party and began working for the Cheka, so successfully that in 1918 he was entrusted one of the departments of counterintelligence in Moscow. And after Trotsky makes him chief of his security. The most amazing thing is that allegedly in just 1 year of study at the Academy of Intelligence, Blumkin knew many Eastern languages and received such extensive knowledge that after training he was ready to perform the most difficult assignments around the world. The list of special operations that Blumkin oversaw is astounding. At 20, he participates in the operation to overthrow the Khan of Persia and brings the local communist leader to power. He soon suppresses an anti-communist uprising in Georgia. During a secret trip to Afghanistan and India, Blumkin is seized by British police, but easily escapes from prison, taking with him secret maps and documents of an English agent. Over the next few years, Blumkin conducts special operations in China, India, and Mongolia. 2 years later, Blumkin becomes an OGPU resident in Constantinople, from where he oversees the entire Middle East. Blumkin's brilliant intelligence career was cut short abruptly and unexpectedly in 1929. He visits Moscow and reports on his work. By that time, he had maintained close contacts with Lev Trotsky, who had fled the country, and was sharply critical of Stalin's policies through his letters. For this, he was seized and, on conviction, shot. The monk Abel, whom many call the Russian Nostradamus, remains one of the most enigmatic men of Russian history. The most surprising thing is that no official documents have survived about the life of monk Abel, who was known as Vasily Vasilyev. The only exception is the case of the Ministry of Justice of the Russian Empire in 1796, in which the monk was accused of distributing a book of his prophecies. According to unverified information, Vasily Vasilyev was born in 1757, worked as a carpenter, started a family, but at the age of 28 Vasily unexpectedly left home, left his family and children behind, and took monastic vows in the Volyn monastery. But in the monastery Abel stayed only about a year, after which his wanderings across the country began. Finally, in 1796, Abel predicted that Empress Catherine II would die in 8 months, and the prediction accurately came true. After Abel predicted the date of Emperor Paul I's death, the monk was persecuted, and after Paul's death he was exiled to the Solovetsky monastery. Rumor has it that Emperor Paul personally wrote down all the prophecies of Abel, then sealed them in the so-called Gachina chest, which exactly 100 years after Paul's death, in 1901, opened by Emperor Nicholas II. According to legend, the casket contained a prophecy of the death of the imperial family and the termination of the Romanov dynasty in 1918. Abel's predictions, as they now exist, predicted with surprising accuracy the fate of Russian emperors from Paul I to Nicholas II. On the one hand, skeptics note that at some point all of Abel's printed predictions of events occurred after the events themselves, and earlier prophecies simply cannot be verified. On the other hand, the love of the imperial family for some unknown monk, whose name was almost erased from Russian history, looked too suspicious. George Ivanovich Gurdjieff was a philosopher, a mystic, and one of the most enigmatic and controversial figures of the first half of the 20th century. Some believe that his disciples included Stalin and Adolf Hitler. Gurdjieff was born in the territory of modern Armenia in 1866, or maybe in 1872, or maybe in 1874, or maybe in 1877. I think you've already realized that many biographers have tried and are still trying to make sense of Gurdjieff's complicated, intense life. He himself did his best to cover up the traces of his biography, to mix facts with legends. It is known that, as a young man, Gurdjieff traveled with a group of like-minded individuals to the east in search of ancient knowledge, possibly preserved and extant today. Gurdjieff subsequently mentioned that he had visited Tibet, Eastern Persia, and Mongolia. This mysterious man made an unexpected appearance in Russia in about 1913, where he was able to attract the attention of the Russian artistic intelligentsia. Important people began to gather around him, but the revolution of 1917 and the civil war that followed thwarted Gurdjieff's plan. He had to go to Paris, where in 1922, with the money collected from the proposals of his theories, Gurdjieff bought a chateau in the Priori estate. There, he opened his own institute, the Institute for the Harmonious Development of Man. Gurdjieff, along with his students, held classes, performances in France, England, and the United States. Needless to say, what popularity and influence Gurdjieff achieved those years. George Gurdjieff died back in 1949, and his teachings, the books he wrote, are very popular today throughout the world. And the phenomenon of Gurdjieff himself is still not fully understood. Sonia Zolotaia Ruchka is the most famous adventuress in Russian history, whose name has long been a household name. Surprisingly, historians still do not agree on who actually hid under the name of Golden Hand. It is believed that the real Sonia was Sofia Ivanovna Bluvalstein, but her biography is so vague and obviously falsified that, according to many historians, now it is impossible to say who Sofia Bluvalstein really was. According to official data, the Golden Pen was born in 1846 in the province of Warsaw to a Jewish family. She had no education, but she spoke several languages and, according to people and acquaintances of Sofia, she had phenomenal artistic talent and could instantly transform herself. Aristocrats in Russia and Europe without the slightest hesitation took her for a lady of her circle, which is why she could freely travel abroad, where she presented herself as a viscountess, then a baroness, and even a countess. Sofia, far from beautiful, easily won men's hearts. As contemporaries note, she had an extraordinary inner charm that was impossible to resist. Sofia was a proud, daring, and independent adventurer who was not afraid to pull off even the most risky operations, and her ingenuity would have been the envy of Ostap Bender himself. In November 1885, the Golden Pen was found guilty of stealing several large amounts of jewelry. The Bluestein case caused unprecedented excitement throughout Russia. The courtroom where the trial was held could not accommodate all comers. The sentence was strict, hard labor in Sakhalin, where Sonia spent the rest of her life. But here another mystery of Sonia Golden Hand comes to light, who was really serving hard labor on Sakhalin. Many locals believed that it was not Sonia at all, but a shifter, a fake person who was serving her sentence, while the real Golden Pen continued her elusive activities around the world. In the mid-90s, a series of mysterious robberies swept through Europe, and the prime suspect was a woman. The handwriting and description of the perpetrator reminded Sonic of the Golden Pen. And the criminal was never caught. The death of Emperor Alexander I in the prime of his life gave rise to many rumors. The emperor died so unexpectedly hastily that rumors spread throughout Russia that Alexander did not actually die, but staged his death. And so on September 4, 1836, about 11 years after the death of Alexander I in the province of Perm, the gendarmes detained a strange old man riding in a cart to unknown places and for no reason. They did not find any documents on him, but there were whip marks on his back, and the white horse in the cart was forbidden, which could hardly be afforded by an ordinary peasant. At the interrogation, the old man identified himself as Fyodor Kuzmich Kuzmin. When asked about his origins, he answered that he could not remember his relatives. He was sentenced to perpetual exile to Siberia because he could not be formally accused of any crime except vagrancy. After his release, Fyodor Kuzmich began to travel to the surrounding villages and teach children and talk to all who wished about the faith and holy writings. To the surrounding peasants and Cossacks, Fyodor Kuzmich often told various stories, mainly about the War of 1812, and with such details, which could only be known by a man close to the headquarters of the commander or who himself had fought at least at the rank of brigadier general. The elder began to be revered for his righteous life, and people turned to him for advice on various worldly matters. At the same period, a legend about his royal origin arises. Several people who saw Alexander I during his lifetime recognized Fyodor Kuzmich as the deceased emperor. In favor of this version say many strange facts. The old man was educated and well-read, and he was knowledgeable in such things, which could not be seen by ordinary peasants. A strange message was left after the old man, passages from the Gospels, and a strange cipher. Why would a reclusive elder use a cipher? Moreover, the scientists graphologists have studied the handwriting of the old man and compared it to the handwriting of Alexander I and declared that it is the handwriting of the same person. Besides, there is evidence of a former church attendant that after the death of the old man, the Emperor Alexander II personally attended the funeral and ordered to bury the old man in the empty casket of Alexander I. The question who actually lies in the tomb of Alexander could determine it is a genetic expertise. Well, we wait. If you liked the video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and write what you think about it. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Your support is very important to me.